Welcome to Undrafted Hockey Fan. I am Brad. Today we are reviewing the Atlantic Division and who I think won, like ranking-wise, who I think won the trade deadline in the Atlantic Division. We're going to be doing every division, so check out those videos as they come. When we start out the Atlantic Division, because, you know, I'm wearing the jersey. I'm wearing the Red Wings jersey. That's an indicator. If you think that's an indication of who's winning, you're absolutely wrong. And if you're on audio, you can't see me, but if you want to check out my YouTube channel, you absolutely can. You can find me on all socials, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and all that jazz. So come say hi and everything, and leave a like and a rating and all that stuff, and a comment if you think I'm wrong. Send me your rankings. Put it down below who you think won the rankings. So let's just start off at the bottom. Number 8. So I'll be sharing my screen if you want to check this out on YouTube, but we're going to go with the number 8 is going to be the Montreal Canadiens. And if you're looking at this, we're looking at puckpd.com. They did nothing. They did absolutely nothing. Is the most infuriating thing, because if you look at who they have as players and everything, they had people that they could have traded. So going to their depth chart over here, pulling that up, they could have traded a guy like Joel Armia. They could have traded a Christian Dvorak. They could have traded a David Savard. David Savard is the second most, I think second or first in block shots this whole season. David Savard, they had one retention spot as well. So they could have retained these guys. These are all guys that are going to be leaving at the end of the year. So you have a David Savard, who, mind you, is 33 years old, 12 points, 56 games. He's playing second pair minutes, and he puts up a ton. He did great on the penalty kill. He plays almost 3.5 minutes on the penalty kill. Again, you have a Joel Armia, who plays a fourth line right now, 25 points in 62 games. Plays a little bit of power play. He plays a lot of penalty kill. Again, that's couldn't net you a pick or anything. And then Christian Dvorak as well. He's 29, so he's probably gonna be looking for a big contract. 20 points in 62 games. Was only playing about 14.5 minutes a night. But again, another guy who plays the penalty kill. These are 3 guys you could have used. You could have got any assets. It could have been a third, a fourth, any fifth, even a 5th round pick, right? It might, unless you're planning on resigning these guys in the offseason, which there isn't an indication. That's my issue, is that why would you sign David Savard? Maybe I can understand that as well, right? But if you're looking at like a Christian Dvorak, 29 years old, he's going to want a big contract. He's already making $4.45 million. He's probably going to want something similar or more for a longer term. It's like, do you want to give it to him? So it's like, and he's your third line center. So like, I mean, maybe I know they are hurting for center positions, but that's something you can fulfill in the offseason. Same with Armia. You're like, okay, he's 30, going to be 31 soon. Like, are you going to bring him back again as a depth role? You probably want to bring in some young guys, because that's kind of, the you're trying to pull out of this rebuild. So like, kind of want to move the young guys in and everything. So to me, it just doesn't make sense. I just don't care for that. You need to be able to do something, in my opinion. You have to be able to do just something to move the team forward. And to me, I just thought that was a real misstep on Montreal. And we'll go on to number 7 now. So at number 8, we have Montreal. And number 7, we have the Detroit Red Wings. To me, it was pretty lackluster, especially as a Red Wings fan. I was really disappointed. I thought these guys are going for a playoff spot and everything. And I was like, okay, maybe they're gonna make some sort of move. I mean, trade out, not a first, second round pick, not a top prospect, but hey, like Carson Soucy went for a 3rd round pick. Like that's a doable thing. That's Luke Cunningham went for a 4th round pick. They even got a 7th back for him. So to me, I was like, this would be a small move, but kind of like a gesture towards the team. And I know they're on a 4-game losing streak. Like they lost the night of the trade deadline too, and so which is even more disappointing. But to me, like it would have shown some faith that Eisman had, even if it's some sort of move. To me, I was really disappointed in some of the moves. Mind you, there's a couple of good things that I did like they did. Going after the trade deadline, they did move off of Ville Husso. He was going to be a UFA anyways. Anaheim completely took his contract, so that freed up some cap space. So I was like, okay, this is good. They're going to make some moves and everything, because now they have this cap space available. And they did use a little bit of it. They actually ended up taking on a part of Yanni Gourde's contract. They were the 3rd team in the trade with Seattle Kraken and the Tampa Bay Lightning. They also sent out Kyle Aucoin to the Seattle Kraken. He ended up going actually back to the Tampa Bay. I think he's gone anyway. I think he ended up going to the Tampa Bay Lightning. It was more of just a contract move. And then what do they get back? They get a 4th round pick in this deal. Actually, let's go to the details real quick, because it looks like there's a condition on it. I think it's the higher, I believe, of the call. Yeah, it's the highest selection between Tampa Bay and Edmonton. So it's relatively small, right? It's a small detail, depending on if Edmonton goes further or Tampa Bay does. So that one's like, that's fine. That's a good use of cap space. That's something I like they should use. And again, use up the retention spots. Like, why not? If you at least do something that it's going to create value, right? Again, be the third party mediator in these kind of things. So to me, I was a little concerned on that. I was like, okay, like cool, it's something, I guess. I guess technically it's a trade, right? You know, you did more than Montreal. And then one of the last pieces they did is they ended up moving out Joe Veleno to the Chicago Blackhawks. In return, they ended up getting Peter Mrazek and Craig Smith. So, I'll say the reason that this has some value. And I was like, what are we doing here, guys? We're sending a young player out for two old guys. Like, doesn't make sense. Why are we doing this type of thing? And I was able to kind of justify it because of the extra year that Joe Veleno has on his contract. And I was like, you're going to Peter Mrazek for not just this year, get him for next year too. What are we doing? And so I rationalized it this way. Joe Veleno, former first round pick, 30th overall by the Detroit Red Wings, has just not panned out. He's part of the Holland era as well. To me, he just hasn't worked out. He's more of a bottom six center. He can play on the top, right? You kind of move him around a little bit, but he's more of a defensively minded player. And so you were never going to get the production that you want out of him. And so I think there was just like a desire to end up moving him anyways and just kind of move on from him. I think giving him another opportunity is good, right? I think Chicago's a great spot to be in too, right? Because you have Connor Bedard, you have a lot of young guys that are coming up, and they're going to need some older going in their prime time guys, right? Like Joe Veleno is also familiar with playing with Tyler Bertuzzi. So this is a good win for Chicago and Joe Veleno's career. And again, you know, Chicago's continue to bring guys in that will be part of this rebuild and help lift up these players. Again, a little bit of talent, maybe more on the bottom six, but good for Chicago in this case. So what is the value that is, and mind you, Chicago gets Joe Veleno for this year, rest of this year, and next year as well. And that's important for this next part. Red Wings bring in Peter Mrazek. And the reason that Peter Mrazek was traded from the Chicago Blackhawks is because Chicago traded Seth Jones for Spencer Knight and a first-round pick. So now you have your tandem in Arvid Soderblom. Ironically, Soderblom, his brother plays on the Red Wings. So Arvid Soderblom and Spencer Knight being the tandem down in Chicago because that's your nice young core of goalies. You want to build them up and see who ends up taking the net. Peter Mrazek is on his way out. He was there to bring some stability, but he is now on the Red Wings. So the value that he is bringing, something that Eisen talked about, is that Peter Mrazek is signed for the rest of this year and next year as well. The Red Wings only have one solidified NHL goalie signed for next year. They have Jack Campbell and Sebastian Costa, Carter Gylander, Alexander Gage, all in the AHL or ECHL. But again, they only have Cam Talbot signed for next year. They already traded Ville Husso, and they also don't have Alex Lyon signed for the rest of signed for next year. I imagine because he played relatively well, but I think he's going to want that long-term contract, and it's just not something that Eisman wants to be able to give out because you have young guys like Trey Augustine coming up soon. Well, he'll be in the AHL. You have Sebastian Costa, you know, and in my opinion, the Red Wings will end up running three goalies next year. I think they'll end up running Costa. I think Costa probably will start in the AHL and see how Mrazek and Talbot go. And if they need to bring up Costa to run through three goalies, that's something they're very familiar with. They did that at the start of this year. They had Talbot, Husso, and Lyon. So something that, again, they're very willing to do. So he brings some stability in net. And the thing is, you look at his cap hit at $4.25 million, you're like, oh, it's kind of a lot of money for this year and next year. Well, you got to consider that now the Red Wings are not paying Joe Veleno next year the $2.275 million. So you're basically getting Peter Mrazek for $2 million. That's kind of you have to think about it, right? You're basically getting a player that it's only going to cost you an extra $2 million more than you were already paying. So I don't mind that at all in that sense. Then Craig Smith as well as your center depth, who is going to help stabilize the center position because now you move out Joe Veleno and you've already lost Andrew Kopp as well. So your center depth now is a little bit more offensively minded. Craig Smith has a little bit more potency when it comes to his offensive mindedness, right? Joe Veleno only had 10 points in 56 games this year, and in 40 games, so less games, Craig Smith had 16 points. He almost has 10 goals too. He has 9 goals and 7 assists. So you're looking at almost a half point per game player. This guy's he's played on Boston before. He's played on Washington Capitals. I think he played Dallas Stars as well. So this guy's moved around a little bit, but he has a little bit more offensive mindedness to him. So I don't mind this. I don't hate it. I don't love it though. But I can kind of justify the Red Wings side of this and what makes sense for that. So that puts Detroit at 7th. We go to number 6. We're going to go with the Buffalo Sabres. So Buffalo Sabres did a lot of big moves today. And so if we look at some of the things they did, we're talking about the big trade with Josh Norris and Dylan Cousins being traded. So you have the Buffalo Sabres get Jacob Bernard-Dockard, Josh Norris as traded for Dylan Cousins, Dennis Gilbert, and a 2026 second-round pick. So we look at the Buffalo Sabres side. We're going to say, okay, Jacob Bernard-Dockard, he is an RFA this year. So he's going to be an RFA up until the end of this year. A former first-round pick. He hasn't really worked out with the Ottawa Senators. And I think they're just kind of like, hey, we got to move on from this guy. He's got 4 points in 25 games. Again, not a hugely prolific guy. The nice thing about Buffalo is that they have a hard time retaining people. So the fact that you can get this RFA and you have him under team control, you can sign him to a deal for like a 1 or 2 year deal. And if you decide you want to keep him, great. If he works out, if not, you can trade him. So that's the idea, in my opinion, of what they're doing with Jacob Bernard-Dockard. Again, you need a D guy. Also, they sent out Dennis Gilbert, who will play 25 games for them. So basically, it's a swap there. To me, that's basically a swap. Similar production and everything, similar amount of games. And so that's where I see the value there. And then we're looking at the other big trade. They have doing a swap for Josh Norris going to the Buffalo Sabres. He's got 33 points in 53 games, and he's got 5 years left on this deal. He's actually he's making a little under $8 million a year. He plays the center position. So again, this is another swap. You're getting Josh Norris. Buffalo Sabres getting Josh Norris, and they're sending back Dylan Cousins, again, another guy who has 5 years, 1 year younger than Josh Norris, got 31 points, 61 games. Definitely a down year for Dylan Cousins, but to me, still a lot of upside, making a similar amount of money. I would argue that Josh Norris is the better player in this case. And you can see the higher production, everything. A little more injury prone is what Josh Norris is. But Dylan Cousins, again, he's an undervalued asset in this case. So, which is one of the reasons that while the Ottawa Senators also got Dylan Cousins, they also picked up a 2nd round pick in 2026 from the Buffalo Sabres. So, again, it's a good little bit of trade for them. But to me, I mean, it's not, again, this is one of the reasons that Buffalo is not making the huge swings. They are trying to get players back and everything. Again, Jacob Bernard-Dockard I think is a good little pickup because you weren't going to keep Dennis Gilbert. Dylan Cousins wasn't happy there. Josh Norris is Brady Tkachuk's best friend. So maybe that's an enticing way to get Brady Tkachuk to Buffalo. I'd be really curious on that. I don't think so, but it'd be really funny if that happened that way. So, and again, Jacob Bernard-Dockard, they can extend him. He's an RFA, so they got his rights under a deal. They also pick up Erik Brannstrom for Nicholas Aube-Kubel. Nicholas Aube-Kubel is going to go into the Rangers, and that's helped them on their playoff run. But the value of getting Erik Brannstrom, who has bounced around a lot of the season, he was with the Vancouver Canucks, he was with the Colorado Avalanche, he was with New York Rangers. So he's got 8 points in 28 games. Again, the value of getting an Erik Brannstrom, a former first-round pick, is that he is RFA. Again, another guy that they have under team control that they can sign, they can keep him and sign him. And then if it ends up not working out, they can flip him for something else. Again, that's a huge pickup. And again, getting guys that want to be here or figure out if they want to be here and sell them on the city and getting them under team control is huge for Buffalo. They also move out Henry Jokiharju for a 2026 4th round pick. This guy had a pretty good showing in the Finland Four Nations tournament. He is going to be a UFA this year, so they had to decide if they wanted to keep him or not. Decided not to. And again, this is a guy that they don't have under team control, so that is something that you have to consider when trying to sign guys. So he has 6 points in 42 games. He's never been really a huge point getter. Last year in 74 games, he had 20 points. But again, this is a guy that I think he's a former first round pick of the Chicago Blackhawks. So a nice little piece of business. Again, you get a pick for a guy that you're not going to resign. So not too shabby. So we want to do the Ottawa Senators. Going over there. Let me pull this page up real quick. Ottawa Senators I have in the 5th spot. So just a reminder, 8th was was Montreal, 7th because they did nothing. Detroit was 7th. Buffalo was 6th, and the 5th it is Ottawa. Ottawa actually did okay this trade deadline. So they did a lot of things. We just talked about the Dylan Cousins trade and the Josh Norris trade. Again, I think Ottawa gets worse in this trade. I would say in the immediate, they get worse. But again, I think Dylan Cousins could end up being just as good as Josh Norris. And again, is a little less injury prone. Plus, you're getting a 2nd round pick for this. And again, you move off of Jacob Bernard-Dockard, which I think the fan base had some issues with because he just had not panned out as a 1st round pick. So he gets another opportunity. So you get an undervalued Dylan Cousins. The crazy thing is that this trade was done within division, which I think was even wilder that they wanted to trade these two guys that were so much in a similar position. So to me, I think that's a little wild. But again, these guys have team control, so why not do this? Again, you're getting an undervalued guy in Dylan Cousins, and again, you get a bonus 2nd round pick for someone that again that can produce just as well as Josh Norris for less money. Like sign me up. That sounds like a great win for the Ottawa Senators. Moving on to the other one that the Ottawa did is they ended up trading for the big piece in this is Fabian Zetterlund, and they trade out. They also get Tristan Robbins and a 2025 fourth round pick of the San Jose Sharks, trading out Zachary Ostapchuk, Noah Gregor, and a 2025 second round pick. So this is San Jose trying to get better, I think there was talks about trying to sign Fabian Zetterlund, and who is having a bomb year. He really broke out with the San Jose Sharks. He was a piece from the Timo Meier deal from the New Jersey Devils. 36 points in 64 games. Again, really started to break out. He was an RFA, could not, I assume they couldn't come to a contract agreement. That was what his agent Claude Lemieux had talked about. And so the San Jose Sharks or the Ottawa Senators are picking him up. And again, I think they have some confidence they can re-sign him. Plus he's an RFA. They really must have liked his game on the winger side. So I think that's a great little pickup for them. They also pick up Tristan Robbins, who he's only played three career games in the NHL. He's only 23 years old, a center. He's a former second round pick in 2020 for the San Jose Sharks. And so when you're looking at him playing with the Barracuda in the AHL, 18 points in 41 games, and he had 18 points last year in 42 games, very similar production. So again, you're getting a guy, AHLer, he might work out. Cool. If he doesn't, then no big deal. You move on from him. And then Ottawa gets that 2025 fourth round draft pick. So again, you're getting a guy that you want in Fabian Zetterlund. Zach Ostap to me was a guy that I actually liked. To me, I liked him when the Red Wings played him, and so he played 43 games this season, only 4 points. Not really a banner year for him. He's only 21 years old. He's a center. But I think when you look at the center depth that they have, I think they were just not. They were like, okay, I don't know if he's going to work out long term. But you trade him for a guy that, because mind you, Ottawa Senators are trying to get good now, and Zach might have been better he might have been good long term, but they can get a guy who's actually performing now in Zetterlund. I think that makes a lot more sense. They also move off of Noah Gregor, who the San Jose Sharks are very familiar with. He only had 6 points in 40 games, but he previously worked. Well, I think he was on the San Jose Sharks, and then he was a former fourth round pick in 2016 for the San Jose Sharks. Bounced around a little bit, played with the Toronto Maple Leafs for 63 games, again went to Ottawa Senators, and now he's back with the Sharks. And the nice thing, similar to Buffalo, the San Jose Sharks, he is an RFA right now, Noah Gregor, until 2025. So they have him his rights locked up until this year, so they can sign him to another deal if they want to extend him. I think it's a good move. I like Noah Gregor a lot. I think he's an underrated player. I think he plays a good bottom six role. So I think he's got a prolific career to continue just powering through and just being a menace on the ice. So this is a good win for both teams. Again, Ottawa Senators getting better now. And then again, the San Jose Sharks get a young player that has a little bit of NHL experience in the second round pick. So again, this is a good win for the Ottawa Senators. Moving on to so that was the fourth pick or the fifth pick. So if we're looking at the rankings so far, we have Ottawa in fifth, Buffalo in sixth, Detroit in seventh, and Montreal in eighth. So we're going to take a quick ad break. And so we'll jump back into the who I have the rankings. I'm going to go. I got to cover Tampa, Florida, Boston, and Toronto. I did not give you the order, and I did it on purpose. So make sure you stick around and stay tuned for this ranking afterwards. You know, it might not feel like it, but spring is right around the corner. You know how you can tell? Golfers are hitting the links, and we have some tournaments to talk about. And if you want to do more than just talk, put your money where your mouth is. Get in on all the tee to green action with DraftKings Sportsbook. From Thursday's opening round through the closing round Sunday, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered with tournament props, live betting, odds boost, and so much more. And if you've never bet on golf before, it's easier than you think. Just pick up something simple like a golfer to win the tourney and make your pick. It's just that easy. Now we got some tournaments coming up. We got the Puerto Rico Open, the Players Championship, the Valspar Championship, the Texas Children's Houston Open. Maybe you can bet versus Stefan Jaeger to win. Maybe a little Scotty Scheffler or a little Bryce Garnett. You know, whatever it is, you can get on the action. And here's something special for first timers. New to DraftKings customers, bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets instantly. download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit cpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boo Hill Casino and Resort. 21 plus, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. And we are back talking about the Atlantic Division. So far, if you don't recall, we have Ottawa in 5th as trade deadline winners so far as 5th. Buffalo's at 6th. Detroit is at 7th, and Montreal is at 8th. And so we're moving on to the 4th place spot. And to me, I have the Boston Bruins. Let me pull up their page real quick. The Boston Bruins, to me, I love that they picked a direction. And this is where we're starting to see some upside with some of these teams. This was a great little pickup. I mean, great. I would say great on objectively, right? They needed to do something. They did a lot of things, by the way. They're really tearing this down. And I do believe, and I said this before, I literally, if you want to go check out, I did a live on YouTube with a couple of Bruins fans, as well as a Montreal Canadiens fan, talking about the Bruins and what the direction was. And I absolutely believe that the Boston Bruins are going to try and sell this as a retool, not a rebuild. So let's start off with the start of what they ended up doing. They ended up sending Trent Frederick to the Edmonton Oilers. Who they ended up getting back is they ended up getting. I'm pulling it up right here. Max Wayner, a 2025 second round pick, which was originally the St. Louis Blues from the Broberg offer sheet, as well as a 2026 fourth round pick. So in this details right here, what we're seeing is that. And of course, you have the New Jersey Devils being as a mediary here. But again, who are they getting in Max Wayner? So he has not played an NHL game so far. He's a defenseman though, and that is one of the bonuses here. They also get again the second round pick and the fourth round pick, showing a direction. Again, they also traded Max Jones as well, who played 7 games with them before. Again, a guy that was has 1 year left on his deal. That's a little bit more depth for the Edmonton Oilers. But who the Boston Bruins get? They get Max Wayner, a former 7th round pick in 2021, 6'3". He's only 185 pounds, which is crazy. That's my goal weight right there. And in the AHL, he only had 2 points this past year in 22 games. And so again, he's not a huge barn burner in this case. But again, you got to think about you're getting the second round pick and the fourth round pick, which is the huge part. And Trent Frederick is also injured, so you have to consider that the Edmonton Oilers are getting a guy who's not even ready to start playing yet. And so there's no guarantee that he will be back to his full spot again. And then also they had Peter Hauser for a hot second, but he ends up going to the Edmonton Oilers. No big deal there. But they end up moving off the guy who they weren't going to sign anyways. So again, you get assets for a UFA. Why not? Right. And the Boston Bruins, by the way, if you look at in the standings, they're actually the second last in the Atlantic Division right now. They're currently out of a playoff spot. And so their only people that they're beating is currently the Buffalo Sabres. So just to consider that they're going to have a hard time getting into the playoffs as it is with the amount of moves that we saw Florida make and Toronto and the Tampa Bay Lightning. But again, Boston, because they picked a direction, I think that's a winner. That's a winner mentality of what you ended up doing. They also traded out Justin Brazeau, who was a guy, again, a UFA. They were not going to be able to sign. And so to me, this is a great little pickup. You get Marat Kuznetsov. I always say cuts your nuts off. He's 22 years old, center. So that's a little bit of your replacement right there for your Trent Frederick on your bottom 6. He gets 7 points in 47 games, a little more of a bruiser. He's an RFA, so they can re-sign him as well. And they also pick up Jacob Lauko, a guy who has 6 points in 38 games so far. I'm very sure. He was originally a Boston Bruins pickup in the 3rd round in 2018. So they must have liked his game enough, or just to make the salary work, I imagine. I'm not sure. They also get a 6th round pick from which was originally the Boston Bruins for 2026 as well. So again, you're trading out a guy. You're not going to re-sign Justin Brazeau. You're going to a retool. Again, I think it feels like a rebuild the way all the big moves they end up making. But I think this is, again, a good young piece. They're not just trading out for 1st round picks or anything. They're trying to get players back so that they can show why they want to be good and why they want to be competitive. But to me, you're definitely the value you're sending out is definitely not as high as the value that you're getting back. But again, I think they're going to phone it in this year, maybe next year as well, and then just come back strong. So we'll see what they end up doing there. They also, again, and this is another trade. They end up trading out Charlie Coyle in a 2026 fifth round pick that they just got back there's a sixth round pick they got back. 2026 fifth round pick for Casey Middlestad, a 2025 second round pick, which is conditional, and William Zellers. And the nice breakdown about this, you have Casey Middlestad, who was definitely the Avalanche we're looking to move off of. He's got this year and 2 years after this, and he can play that second line center for the Boston Bruins for them. He got 34 points in 63 games, so a little over half point per game player. Definitely not bad at all. I'm not mad about that at all. So I don't know. Let me know, Boston fans, how you're feeling about that. I think that's a good little pickup. Again, you got a guy with some term, and you move off of Charlie Coyle, who's got 22 points in 64 games. Great fourth line center for them. To me, you're going to have Nathan McKinnon. You're going to have Brock Nelson, and now you have Charlie Coyle in your third line center. That is phenomenal. And again, he's 33 years old, so now Boston gets younger in this case. So Boston also sends out a fifth round pick. Not a big deal there. I also get a second round pick, which will be the lower placement. Boston will receive whichever second round draft pick Colorado currently owns that results in a lower placement in the draft. So I think because they're going to get another second round pick in this case, so whichever one's lower. They also pick up William Zeller, which is to me an underrated pickup. He basically traded Charlie Coyle out for Casey Middlestad, a second and a third round pick. So a good value that you're getting back. Because William Zeller was picked in 2024 in the third round. So if we look at what he's doing, he's playing in the USHL with the Green Bay Gamblers. He's got 58 points in 41 games. He's got 37 goals in 41 games. He's actually leading his team in goals right now as an 18-year-old. So again, a great little pickup for the Boston Bruins. I really like that a lot. And so I'm not mad at this position at all. Again, you're getting younger. You're moving off older pieces. It does make the face of the franchise look different. We'll talk about the face of the franchise in a second. It makes the face look different, but it's still a team that is going through a retool, going to try and get better. And I think this is a great move for them. It's very smart. Again, talking about you picking up younger players, they pick up Henry Yokihario as a defenseman. We talked about that in the Buffalo trade. Again, smart. Pretty cheap acquisition, by the way. 2026 fourth round pick for a guy who's only 25 years old. He's a defenseman. He's only got 6 points in 42 games, but it's a guy that he's young. He's a right-handed D. And so again, those guys are coming out at premium for a fourth round pick. You're like, yeah, I'm definitely willing to take a risk on this guy for sure for a fourth round pick. Moving on to there's a quick AHL move. I'm not going to cover that one over there. Then you also have two of the big moves. If we're talking about the first one, the franchise changer. You sent out your captain, Brad Marchand, making half retained for a conditional second round pick, which the condition on that is that it is a second round pick and it will become a first round pick in 27 or 28 if Florida wins 2 rounds. So first round, second round goes to the Eastern Conference Finals, and Marchand plays 50% of those playoff games. Brad Marchand currently is on LTIR right now, so he is currently injured. So that's why there's a condition that he plays 50% of the playoff games. But again, I think that's a huge boost. It's a bummer if it only pans out as a second round pick. Absolute bummer. If you can get a first round pick for Brad Marchand, I think that's the value there. Is that you could say, okay, man, like he left, he put his heart and soul into this team. He was drafted here in the third round. He's playing hard. He showed up for us, and it's like, I don't know. To me, it's like, hey, I think he was a third round pick. He was third round pick in 2006. Holy smokes, that's so long ago. That's like a crazy amount of time ago. He's played a crazy amount of games. It's not even listed on Puckpedia right now, but to me, I think it's just it's so cool to see. It's such a cool to see a guy like this traded. They decided to honor where he wanted to go. He said, I want to go to Florida, and they're like, sure, okay, we can do that. And again, I love that for Brad Marchand. And again, it just makes Florida all that more formidable as well, which is infuriating, by the way. But good for them picking up Brad Marchand for Florida. And again, Boston getting value where it's going to be. If you're not going to re-sign the guy, supposedly they offer him a 2-year deal at $3 million a year. Disservice, in my opinion. I just thought that's just mean. Don Sweeney needs to go. Cam Neely needs to go. But management said they stand by their moves, and so it is what it is. I'm sorry, Boston fans. I am sorry about that. So, but the thing I think the Toronto Maple Leafs are not sorry about is the trade for Brandon Carlo to the Maple Leafs, who is signed for not only this year, but next year and the year after. And Boston will be using one of the retention spots for this year and the next 2 years, holding back about 15% of the contract, which is $615,000 per year for that contract. Carlo is not a points getter. He's 9 points in 63 games, but he's absolutely a monster on the penalty kill, which is the Maple Leafs need, because they're sitting in the middle. I think they're around 14th for penalty kill. So this is a great boost for the Toronto Maple Leafs getting their defensemen, and we'll talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs later. And who did they send back? They sent back Fraser Minten, who is highly touted as one of the Leafs' top prospects, because the Leafs don't have a ton of prospects. Former second-round pick in 2022. He played 4 games with the team. He had 15 games, or he had 4 points in 15 games with the Toronto Maple Leafs this year. And the AHL is only putting about a half point per game. But mind you, this is a guy, second-round pick, again, in 2022. He's only 20 years old, right? So this is, again, Boston Bruins getting younger. This is a guy that can play in your AHL, or he can play in the bottom, the middle six right now, just to start to get him acclimated. He is 6'2", so he's got some size onto him. Again, this is the Boston Bruins getting younger and moving on from a guy that was not going to be part of the long-term plan of getting the retool. And Brandon Carlo is, this is a great pickup for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They also get a top 10. The Boston Bruins also get a 2026 first-round pick that is top 5 protected. I'm sure they're not going to be top 5 in the draft order. And then also they get a 2025 4th-round pick from the Scott Lawton trade. So again, Boston getting a first-round pick, great piece. They're also getting a prospect for Carlo. And again, Toronto Maple Leafs get a guy that's going to be on here for a couple of years. I think this is a good win. I think it's a good trade for the Boston Bruins. And again, it's a great pickup. Again, you're moving out pieces you're not going to use anymore. You're trying to bring in young guys and see if you can establish yourself in this retool, and kind of do what St. Louis is doing, where you're moving out guys that you weren't going to use. Ryan O'Reilly, Tarasenko. They actually talked about moving out like Robert Thomas and Braden Shen as well. So there's retools and rebuilds are hard. But again, I think Boston Bruins are moving out the right pieces, and I think they're starting to say, hey, we're going to make a new change here. There's going to be a new regime, and I think this is a good transition period for the Boston Bruins. Moving on to my number 3 pick, we have the Tampa Bay Lightning. Oh goodness gracious, we're going long here. Tampa Bay Lightning. They made one big move, which was picking up the Oliver Bjorkstrand, as well as Yanni Gourde, Kyle Coyne, and a 2026 5th-round pick. You had Detroit acted as an intermediary there. Had Yanni Gourde retained for a 2025 4th-round pick. And then Seattle Kraken getting back Michael Eyssimont, a 2025 2nd-round pick, a 2026 1st-round pick, and a 2027 1st-round pick. Huge price to pay. And to me, I think that was an overpay for who you're getting in Bjorkstrand, who's playing well, 37 points in 61 games, but they have him for this year, the rest of this year, and next year. So that is one of the considerations of the price. We know that you liked Yanni Gourde as well, who's an absolute monster for them. If we look at where's Yanni Gourde, let's pull up his, and he's half his contract is retained by both Seattle, and then 25% of it is held by the Detroit Red Wings. He's already got a point in his first game, 17 points in 36 games. He was injured at one point, but he's very familiar with the Tampa Bay Lightning. He's very familiar with their system, because you know why? He won 2 Stanley Cups here. So I think this is definitely not this is a Tampa Bay Lightning bringing back one of the guys who helped them push over. Great third line center. And again, they move off Michael Eyssimont. And again, Oliver Bjorkstrand, to me, underrated, because he was stuck at Columbus for a long time. Then he goes to Seattle, or Columbus, who was bad for a long time. Goes to Seattle, who has just not really performed fully. And I think he's going to start to pop off. I can see this guy putting up next year, probably upwards of 50 or 60 points next year, just with Tampa Bay Lightning. Just start playing with higher end players. Probably one of the best top 9s in the league for this Tampa Bay Lightning. So that's their one move. Again, I have him at 3rd. Let's review real quick. I got Tampa Bay at 3rd, Boston at 4th, Ottawa in 5th, Buffalo in 6th, Detroit in 7th, and Montreal in 8th. So we got number 2. Let's go over the number 2 impact trades. We have the Florida Panthers. So going over to them, they did a couple trades here today, or this trade season. So we have, first off, one of the bigger trades did on March 1st. They trade for Seth Jones, who is by the way, this is a shocking deal when it ended up happening. We saw Seth Jones go to the Florida Panthers with $250,000 retained. So that he's basically getting him at $7 million. So it's basically about a little under 25% retained. for not only this year, but the next 5 years. Chicago has to have that contract on online. That is tough. They also get a 2026 fourth round pick, which is Chicago's, sending back Spencer Knight and a 2026 first round pick, and it slides to 2027 if Florida doesn't have the 2026 pick. To me, so Florida Panthers immediately lose their backup goaltender. I think there was Spencer Knight. They really liked him. But to me, when you have a guy like Bobrovsky, who's in Florida's in their win now, right? Spencer Knight is looking like a good goalie. He had a 907 save percentage, a 2.4 goals against average in 23 games. Probably playing against lesser competition. But again, if Bob continues to play, he signed for this year and next year. And if they continue to play like this, like Florida wants to win today. They want to win, not this year, next year, and the year after. They want to continue to try and keep this going as long as they can. Spencer Knight is a good goalie. He probably will end up being a good goalie for the rest of his career. But to me, the risk is not worth it, especially for a guy that they need to win now. So Seth Jones absolutely helps them win now in this case. Again, he's a defenseman, helps bolster that defense on the right side, a 6'4" as well. I mean, this guy hasn't played, and he got 27 points in 42 games. I mean, it's a very productive defenseman. And again, Seth Jones now on the Florida Panthers doesn't have to be the number one guy. On Chicago, he was the guy. He was the veteran. He was the old guy that needed to take on a lot of minutes. And that was because he was expected to. He was brought in to do that. He's paid the money to do that. Now, a $7 million Seth Jones helps Florida kind of bolster that defense, as well as if Aaron Ekblad decides not to sign with the Florida Panthers, they can now say, well, hey, here's the contract we're going to offer you. And if you don't want to take it, that's fine. We'll let you walk because we have Seth Jones who can take over that number one right D spot. So to me, I think this is a great position. It's basically Aaron Ekblad insurance. And again, you have Florida taking on $12.5 million over the next 5 years. It's going to cost you a pretty penny, right? So that sending out Spencer Knight, which you save money there, and the first round pick is a big price. But again, you're doing it to win now. So they also do pick up that goaltender. They send out the backup goaltender. They end up trading an AHL guy, Patrick Gillies, to the San Jose Sharks for Vitek Vanacek. He's been fine. He's a backup goalie. He's honestly when it comes to the we'll look at his numbers now that my computer pulled it up. He is a backup goalie. 882 save percentage and a 388 goals against average in 18 games with San Jose Sharks. Not great. Again, he's not there. They're going to rely on Bob. He is get him through the regular season, give Bob a couple stops so that he can go rest a little bit. But basically, we know they're going to be running Bobrovsky through the whole playoffs and everything. We also have a trade, again, another San Jose Sharks trade. 2026 fourth is sent out for Nico Sturm and a 2027 seventh round pick. Again, Nico Sturm, a former Avalanche who won the Stanley Cup with them in 2022. He's a good bottom six guy. He can play center, 13 points in 47 games. Again, he's good for this year. They're in win now. They need some depth. This is basically like what they did with Kyle Okposo. It's just basically an extra body. Guys get tired. They need rest. Nico Sturm, he's won a Stanley Cup. He's a great bottom six guy. This is an easy decision in my opinion. We also do a third goal, the third goalie. So originally the Florida Panthers brought up Chris Drieger from the AHL. He was just not working in the AHL either, not having good numbers. And also Winnipeg Jets have a third goalie in Kaapo Kähkönen down the AHL. Basically, it's a third goalie swap. These guys are not expected to play in the playoffs at all. They're just there as insurance to be a backup if need be, if they needed something, a filler, right? Again, it's an AHL move, not a huge deal. One of the big pickups, though, another big pickup similar to Seth Jones, they pick up Brad Marchand, captain of the Boston Bruins that we just covered. For only a second round pick kind of seems crazy. And again, Florida has the confidence saying, hey, we think we're going to go far. And we're willing to send out the first round pick if we go far. But again, this is one of those where it's a good risk. He's on LTIR right now, or he's on IR. He's injured. So there are the good conditions that if it only costs you a second round pick and you get some games out of Brad Marchand, that makes a ton of sense. They had the cap space to take him on. Not a huge trades. Very, very cheap price. And again, I believe that Florida ends up making the Eastern Conference Finals. But again, there's a little bit of insurance, the two conditions on there. And I think Brad Marchand, Boston and Florida have such a similar game style. And this makes a ton of sense for the Florida Panthers. So moving on to my last pick, the team. So again, just run through who the rankings are currently. We have Florida is in second. Tampa Bay is in third. Boston is in fourth. Ottawa Senators in fifth. Buffalo Sabres in 6th, Detroit Red Wings in 7th, and in 8th, the Montreal Canadiens, because I think the winners of this trade deadline are the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think, and the reason I'm saying the trade deadline I'm looking at the trade deadline moves. This is not who I think is going to win the division. This is not who I think is going to come out of the Eastern Conference. This is who I think won based on the trades that they did. And I think Toronto did the best. If we're looking at what they did a lot of really good things, and they did two big good pickups that were not crazy pricey either. And we just saw Florida. We saw Tampa Bay. I thought they paid way too much for Yanni Gourde and Bjorkstrand. I thought Florida paid a lot for Seth Jones. They're getting a lot back for Seth Jones, but it's a big price to pay. It's a high risk. Again, you have a goalie of the future to replace him either. And then you also you also trade for Brad Marchand. Again, another first round pick for a guy who's injured. He's a great player. He's great production, but is it worth it? Again, this is the teams that are all in. The nice thing about, and those are moves that are gonna, they're gonna affect the next couple of years. This is also, I think, Toronto. The reason that they did so well is that they picked up guys that have term, they have good retention, and they paid a lot, but not as much as I thought that the Florida Panthers and Tampa Bay Lightning had paid. So look at their first trade of the day. They ended up picking up Scott Laughton, 30 years old, at half retained. He's only being paid $1.5 million by the Toronto Maple Leafs. Get 27 points in 60 games, so a little under half point per game player, and you get your third line center so they can move off of Domi and put him to the wing, which I think he'll absolutely thrive a lot better in. Toronto Maple Leafs also get a 2025 fourth round pick and a 2027 sixth round pick. Who do they end up trading out? They trade out a first round pick as top 10 protected in 2027, as well as Nikita Grebenkin, who only played 7 games so far this season, but he's a 21-year-old Russian winger, 6'2", 209 pounds. And this guy was formerly drafted in the fifth round. He's really starting to break out. He's from 2022 as well. This guy had a great KHL season in 23-24, which would have been, last year. And so you see that he had 41 points in 67 games in the KHL as a 20-year-old, which is phenomenal. Love to see that. With the Marlies, got 21 points in 39 games. Good half point per game player for, again, a 21-year-old. So I think this is a good, smart move for Philly. They get a good asset for them. And again, it's a guy that they need guys that are going to impact now. Toronto needs guys in the depth now. Nikita Grebenkin was knocking one of those guys. And again, so you move off a guy that you like, maybe is a tier 2 prospect for you. But again, he's not going to be the impact player that you need to see. He's not going to replace like a William or a Nylander or a Marner or anything, a Nyes or a McMahon. So again, you get a good piece in Laughton for this year and next year at a very, very cheap price. And you get some assets back in the 4th and 5th round picks too. They also trade out, they do a cap dump of Connor Dewar and Connor Timmins, a forward that was traded from the Minnesota Wild, as well as Connor Timmins, who was originally traded from the Arizona Coyotes. And so Connor Timmins is a right-handed defenseman. They move off of him. He played 51 games at 8 points. Connor Dewar had 3 points in 31 games. Again, more bottom 6 guys, and they were able to get a draft pick. Toronto was able to get a draft pick for these guys in 2025 in a 5th round. So you got paid for someone to take some guys off your contract, and this is great for a position that the Penguins are in. They need young guys. They need guys that they can either flip or that can stay on the team and they can decide whether they want to keep them or not. I think this is a good move. And Kyle Dubas, as Steve Dangle would say, loves his guys. Move on to the next piece we have here. Again, we talked about this with Boston. Toronto picked up Brandon Carlo at partially retained at only like a $3.5 million a year player for this year and 2 years after that. That is a great piece of business. Again, it's similar to what we talked about with the trade with Grebenkin. Fraser Minton was a guy that was highly touted within the Toronto media. He's an RFA. He played 15 games this season, 4 points. Again, this is good for Boston because you're getting younger. And again, it's a guy who is not going to be an impact player for the Toronto Maple Leafs in the near future. These guys are going to take 3, 4, 5 years to be, quality middle 6 guys. And Toronto's in a win now time. So they send out the 1st round pick as well on a 4th. Again, getting Brandon Carlo you're getting a guy basically that is for the next several years, for this year and 2 years after that. That is a great buy in this case. I love that a lot. I think when you look at what Tampa Bay had to pay for Yanni Gourde and an extra year of Bjorkstrand, they had to send out 2 first round picks. In this case, you send out a 2nd round prospect who you guys do like, and a 1st round pick. But you get a guy that for this year and next year and the year after that. That's a great piece of business by Brad Treliving. Good for them. They also get a future considerations, Reese Johnson. It's an AHL move. But to me, so if we're looking through the rankings, we have the Toronto Maple Leafs at number 1, who won the trade deadline who won the trade deadline. I got to tell you, it's who won the trade deadline, not who is going to come out of the Eastern Conference. We'll do another video on that later. But we have the Toronto Maple Leafs winning number 1, Florida Panthers number 2, Tampa Bay Lightning number 3, Boston Bruins number 4, Ottawa Senators number 5, Buffalo Sabres number 6, Detroit Red Wings number 7, and then Montreal Canadiens, who did absolutely nothing this trade deadline and coming in at number 8. So let me know what your thoughts are. Hit like and subscribe. Really appreciate you. And I'll be posting the rest of the Metro Division, Pacific, and Central later today and tomorrow. So catch you in the next one. Bye.